Hey, how are you doing? Yeah.
Oh. Yes, questions.
Yeah, you also looks here. One of the fingers. With no shorts.
The meeting I've been dreading my whole life. This is gonna be interesting. Yeah. I got enough business to deal with. You know, I have to say. Oh, what they wanted. I think, but you know what? We're gonna hear the whole thing. Exactly. No, this here is right there. And, oh, yeah. And I mean, that's not a problem. I'm familiar. Hey, my notes that you told me to take.
Awesome, thank you for doing it.
Well, I did a little. Just look at your cups. Go ahead while you talk.
How we get the,
We have to buy them. Okay. Oh, okay. I was trying to turn them on. Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, yeah. Sounds good. I'll just make.
Yeah.
It's yeah,
Thank y'all for your service. We appreciate it. Okay, now we're done. Thank you, Richard, for all your things. You know I will.
And then once all these is shared, I think it's fixed. Yeah.
Okay, it is 6 o'clock and I am going to call this meeting to order of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the May 2nd meeting. Let's do a roll call. We've got everybody except Joe Tuttle, right?
Yep.
Okay, so we've got 6 of us here. Next item on our agenda is to approve the meeting minutes from the April 4th meeting. Does anyone have any edits to those minutes? No? Okay, can I have a
I move
motion?
to approve.
All right, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second? Any discussion? Okay, the minutes from the April 4th meeting are approved. Thank you. Oh God, I'm sorry. My first, all right, so all those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, the minutes are approved officially. Thank you. Any organizational and procedural items for today? Nope. Okay, let's move on. Do we have any unfinished business? I don't believe we do. All right, so now we're going to move into new business, and at the start of new business, we go through the preamble. The Zoning Board of Appeals is charged with the responsibility of granting variances to ordinance requirements after determining whether there exists an undue hardship upon an applicant. In determining whether or not to grant a variance, the board shall apply the criteria specified in the City Code of Ordinances to the facts of each case. The Zoning Board of Appeals does not create zoning, nor can it change zoning. Matters brought before the Zoning Board of Appeals are to be concerned only with variances from requirements of the zoning ordinance, sign ordinance, and development and environmental ordinance. The board has no authority to grant variances for use, density, or height. Further, the board hears cases requesting an appeal to a staff interpretation or decision on these same ordinances. Final decisions of the Zoning Board of Appeals may be appealed by petitioning the Superior Court of DeKalb County within 30 days after the decision is rendered. Okay, and with that, we will move on to our first case, ZBA 24-06. Staff, would you like to present?
Yeah, give me 1 second. It looks like the presentation's not showing up on the screen, so let me make sure that we have that in order.
Just got word from the IT team that is going to take a minute to pull it up.
Maybe we should have some background music playing in the meantime.
We recently just changed how we operate the system, and it worked flawlessly during city council on Monday. But
Of course.
of course, 2 times in a row is too much to ask for.
That's the one, but every time I want to update or something.
Okay, thanks for everyone's patience while we sorted that out.
Excellent. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Good evening, everyone. So the first case is ZBA 24-06. They're requesting a variance to allow a porch to encroach into the 75-foot stream buffer. The subject lot is zoned R100. It's 0.6 acres. The stream and associated buffers are located in the western and southern edges of the property. They can be seen in blue on the survey to the right. Most of the existing house and the entirety of an existing deck are located in the 75-foot stream buffer. Additionally, a portion of the deck and the house are also located in the 25-foot state buffer. The existing deck can be seen in the photo to the left. So the applicant proposes to replace most of the existing deck with a screen porch and to remove the rest of the deck. The 310 square foot screen porch, which can be seen in red on the site plan to the right, will be entirely located within the 75-foot stream buffer, prompting a variance request. A portion of the screen porch will be located in the 25-foot state buffer. However, the Georgia EPD has confirmed that this work will not require a variance from them. An example of what the proposed porch would look like is shown to the left. So they're just going through our stream buffer process. No need to go to the state. There was a letter in the packet stating as such. The 75-foot stream buffer covers over half of the property and almost all of the backyard, making it really difficult for the homeowner to make any improvements to the rear of the house without encroaching into the buffer. Increasing the impervious surface within the stream buffer by 310 square feet would be a minimally intrusive improvement, impacting only approximately 2% of the stream buffer. The project will only require minimal disturbance to install the footings, and construction would not significantly impact the stream bank, natural habitat, or water quality. A rear porch is a standard improvement for most homeowners, and this proposal seeks to enclose only a portion of what currently exists while removing the rest of the existing deck. While, due to the roof structure, the overall impervious surface increases, the improvement will not disrupt any undeveloped areas in the stream buffer. Many of the other homes in the Mount Vernon Lake subdivision have rear porches. Thus, staff finds there would be no special privileges granted and finds that the project does not go beyond the minimum necessary to afford relief. Staff also finds that denial of the variance could cause an undue hardship by preventing the homeowner from reasonable use of their property. Overall, the requested variance would be consistent with the spirit and purpose of the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan. Based on these reasons, staff recommends approval of the request subject to the conditions shown on the screen here. Are two standard conditions and mandating that the porch shall be installed with hand tools only, which is our standard condition for stream buffer variances. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you, staff. Would the applicant like to come forward and present? And please state your name and your address.
My name is Sharman Kai, and my address is 5196 Hepburn Court. I have lived there almost 23 years now. I have a deck that was there when we purchased the house, and it was there before the people we bought it from lived there. They were there 2 years. So it's over 25 years old, and it is coming upon crumbling. Really is in bad shape. My husband was sick for a number of years, and I didn't find it very important to look at it at all. So I would like to change it to a screen porch to make it a usable area. It's always been difficult to use due to insects. The creek has a lot of an abundance, we'll call it an abundance of insect life. When we moved in, everything was eroding into the creek, and my husband and I went to DeKalb County back then and went for their rock program, and we installed or had installed 25 is 50 to 100 pound granite stone in a riprap that starts at the head wall on Hepburn Court and goes past our deck, past the deck. Since then, we have kept the deck area up. The stream banks we have kept clear of trees. We removed ivy and kudzu that was growing to the top of all the trees. We've done everything we could to maintain the property and keep it from washing away into the creek. According to the state, as long as we use the same areas to put the poles in, then we are fine replacing it per their regulations. So now it's just up to Dunwoody. The part of the deck that's coming down, they had a recommendation from the survey company that I use for where to place the fencing. Because once I take the one part of the deck off, I'll have to put mulch and put plantings in to keep that area from eroding. So I've got it all in a row. All I need is approval.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak in favor of this request? No? Anyone who wants to speak in opposition to it? Okay, then we will move to board discussion, right?
All right, I'm ready to move. All right. I move to approve the request for a variance from chapter 16, section 78 to allow a porch to encroach into the 75-foot stream buffer with the following conditions. 1, construction must be in substantial compliance with the submitted site plan prepared by Mill Creek Environmental and dated 10/3/2023. You could see Appendix A for that. The porch shall be installed with hand tools only. And thirdly, if construction has not commenced within 2 years of the granting of this variance, approval shall be void.
All right, thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? No. All right, that passes. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Okay, let's move on to our next case on the docket, ZBA 24-07.
Thanks. So they are requesting a variance to allow a house addition to encroach into the side setback. So the subject lot is zoned R100, it's 0.4 acres. The photo on the left shows the existing driveway and the photo on the right shows the existing side and rear of the house. These are the locations where the applicant proposes to construct the home addition. So the applicants propose to construct an approximately 570 square foot, 2-story addition to the rear and side of the house, which will encroach into the side setback by a maximum of 5 feet. You can see that shown in red on the site plan to the right. The rendering on the left shows the proposed elevation from the street, and then the rendering in the middle shows the proposed floor plan of the second floor of the house addition. So the subject property meets the minimum standards for lot area and width. However, the rear property line is tapered, reducing the buildable area to the rear of the house. Additionally, the property slopes down approximately 8 feet from the southeastern property edge to the western property line, reducing the space available for improvements. The proposed house addition is an incremental change to the existing home and appears to be the minimum necessary to afford relief. The proposed project would not constitute a grant of special privilege. Many of the surrounding homes are of a similar size to the applicant's home, including the proposed house addition. Staff finds that the strict application of the setbacks could cause practical difficulty by not allowing for incremental changes to the property. Overall, staff finds that the project would not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, and that the request meets the spirit and intent of the zoning ordinance. Based on these reasons, we're recommending approval of the request, subject to our standard conditions shown here. We received one letter in support that was included in the packet, and that is from the neighbor that shares the property line where the side setback would be encroached. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, staff. Do we have any board questions as of now? No? Okay, would the applicant like to come forward and present? If you could please state your name and your address.
Hey, I'm Daniel Busby. My address is 2505 Kings Glen Court. So we recently, I guess we have a 2.5-year-old little boy and we both work from home. So my wife kind of works in the sunroom and I'm in our extra bedroom. And then so we're kind of left with 2 home offices kind of spread out. And then we've also got obviously the nursery for my little guy. And really we like to have a full guest bedroom. So, you know, to turn out basically one of our bedrooms into a guest bedroom and extend. The other reason for asking for this addition is to obviously we have a 1-car garage. I guess in the way that the property was built, that's all they could kind of amend for. So it would allow us to house, you know, tooling with our vehicles and kind of a storage space to avoid, you know, any type of hail damage or any type of weather damage on a regular basis or limbs falling, things of that nature. we've been here about a decade. We were a decade in January, so this is our first house. We love our neighbors. We've got good relationships with them. We'd like to continue to stay here. I think right now the interest rates are skyrocketing through the roof, so it's a little, rough time that we've looked at, maybe moving, but we like where we're at, and we felt like this could be, the best option for us is to add this extension to allow our family to continue to grow if we look to have another child after this point. So, because then we'd really be in a bind for space. So definitely appreciate your consideration and thank you guys.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this request? Anyone in opposition? Okay, we will close public comment and move on to board discussion.
Quick question for Mr. Busby. I'm trying to get a little wrap up with how big is the house now? How many square feet?
It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It's got a half bath like in the basement.
How many square feet?
1,700.
Okay, makes sense. Okay. Yeah, you've answered my question. It's not like he's looking.
It's looking to get up to
Right.
average house size.
Exactly. Okay.
That'll,
I actually am ready to make a motion.
Can I ask staff, would you put the site plan up one more time to see I studied it at home, but I want to look at it. So the corner. So let me see, the front corner is not encroached. It's just as it comes in. So how much square footage of the addition do we, about how much is encroaching? So it'd be just a little pie. It's just a little wedge, right?
Yeah, it really,
It's just
because
a
we
little-
walked it off. It's literally just at the point it goes 5 feet in. So at
Right,
the
you're-
deepest part of it, it hits into the 5 feet, but at the front of it, it's
You're on,
within-
right?
Yeah,
on the line.
to Claire's point to staff, maybe it's a question for staff. What percentage of the addition is hitting the setback, the little wedge there?
I'm not sure about that. Pretty small, I would guess less than a fifth, just sort of eyeballing it.
Cause your, the total square footage probably gonna increase. Do you know about how much with your addition?
I believe it was around 575, I think is what we discussed there, and
Okay.
we don't have our final plans for the house, but yeah, it should be right around that 575, so kind of bringing it up into light math, 2,400 square foot total.
So if your variance is approved. So it'd have to go, you're bound by this sort of red box. I should say, no, that's not true. You're bound by that little pizza slice that we approve is, because we really only approve in this, the little part that's in your setback. So just keep that in mind, right? Because essentially, again, I didn't realize you did the rendering, so we don't have a.
Yeah, so I've got I was a building construction major at Georgia Tech, and my senior design partner is my contractor. So I've had him come out and check everything. And so we feel that with the 5-foot variance, that would be plenty of room. We may not even go that deep, but we try to overestimate on the ask just to make sure that we're going to accommodate enough room to not.
Right, yeah. I just want to make sure it was
Past inspection.
understood, right? Okay.
and this drawing in the middle, the dotted line that goes through the bedroom and then down towards the bottom right corner, that's the right.
That is correct.
Is there any other board discussion?
No, but now I'm still ready to make a motion. Okay. I move to approve the request for a variance from chapter 27, section 58 to allow a house addition to encroach into the side setback with the following conditions. Number 1, construction must be in substantial compliance with the submitted site plan prepared by the applicant. Appendix A. If construction has not commenced within 2 years of the granting of this variance, approval shall be void.
Okay, I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. It passes. Thank
very
you
much.
and congratulations.
Early birthday present, birthday's tomorrow. Thank you guys.
Happy birthday. All right, thank you. Our third agenda item is the administrative. Where are we? The administrative permit I'm maybe not saying that right. 24-01. Staff, could you present, please?
Yeah, good evening, Chair, good evening, Board. This is an appeal to an administrative decision, which we don't have a lot of, and we didn't have one in a while. So what I do want to do for this is give a bit of background and both kind of how does the appeal of an administrative decision work. Then, because it is an appeal to a special administrative permit, provide background on how a special administrative permit works and what the approval criteria are. Then third, go into a bit of detail on how fence regulations generally work, because this is for the construction of a fence in a street yard. Go into a bit of detail on that, and then finally just go over the application that was made to us and that we ended up denying. For administrative appeals, which is what's before you all today. So this is an initial staff decision that was made to deny a special administrative permit. The applicant has appealed this to you all. You all have the authority to review the case, and you can, it's sort of at paragraph or like at bullet C in here, you can reverse the decision that staff made. You can affirm the decision that staff made. You can do this in part or wholly, and you can also modify the decision. So it's similar to how you can add conditions for a variance case. You can modify the special administrative permit as well. So you have the same authority in your role as the Board of Appeals that the Community Development Director has as the decision-making authority for a special administrative permit. And then I would like to point you all to number B up here. So this is a public hearing, so people can speak to this in support or in opposition to this appeal. You can consider the entirety of the testimony made, and you can submit the entire documentary evidence. We have submitted the initial application to you all. We have submitted the correspondence that was made as part of the special administrative permit, and you can review all other matters of record. So you have a pretty broad package that we made available to you all, and you can use all of it in your decision making. Finally, like this, a decision has to be made by our ordinance within 60 days from the date of this hearing. What that means is you can defer once, but you cannot defer twice, because the second meeting would not be within the 60-day period, just to set expectations. And then at the bottom of the screen here in section 27-463, the review and approval criteria. What you all have as the criteria is that so you can sustain an appeal if the initial action was based on an erroneous finding of a material fact, or if the administrative official acted in an arbitrary manner. So those are your decision-making criteria for today, and I can pull this up at any point. So then for special administrative permit, because they typically don't come to you all as well, I quickly want to pull up the decision-making criteria that we used for the special administrative permit. And it is that these SAPs can be approved if the grant of the administrative permit will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare of the public, or injurious to the subject property, adjacent properties, or improvements. Number 2, the requested administrative permit does not go beyond the minimum necessary to afford relief. And number 3, the requested administrative permit is consistent with all relevant purpose and intent statements of this zoning ordinance. And then I want to do a quick summary over staff's role in a special administrative permit, because the application before you all sort of misstates some of these items. So I want to get these on the record here. Staff generally ensures that applications are complete. Staff ensures that applications are properly notified. So like any advertising criteria that those are made, staff ensures that a timely decision is provided. What staff does not do and this is true for any application, staff does not pre-decide applications before public input is received. For a special administrative permit, there's a 30-day notification period where people can make comments that we use in our decision-making. Number two, staff does not provide advice regarding the content of an application. The content of the application is the applicant's. That is not something that staff is doing. And more specifically, I want to make 3 points here because they're referenced specifically in the application. First, approval or disdain for the purpose of specific regulations does not provide relief from turning in high quality applications. There's no room to debate the merits of a specific regulations with the staff. The staff does not set policies. It implements them on behalf of the city council. Second, it's a misunderstanding that the staff on any application requests that the applicant writes their application in a specific way. Staff does not do that. The applicant mentions that in a few times in the applications that Allegra or I stated what we wanted them to write. And the staff does not do any of those things. And third, application states that Allegra and I instructed the property owner to simply state that the application meets the requirements. This is untrue. Allegra has in writing, which is part of your package, requested a buffed up narrative and paragraph form. I personally talked to the applicant and asked them to consider if they thought what was provided was sufficient for the director to make a decision. The applicant then asked me whether we are holding up the application if they declined to submit additional information, to which the answer was no. Fence requirements. This is a corner lot, and you'll see the site plan in a moment. For corner lots, the rules are generally any fence up to 4 feet can be constructed anywhere on the property. In the rear yard and in the interior side yard, fences up to 8 feet can be constructed. In side street yards and front street yards, we call them just like street yards. You can install fences up to 4 feet in height. In side street yards, fences of up to 6 feet are allowed with a special administrative permit. And I'll show in a second here to make it a bit clearer. So a 4-foot fence would be allowed on the subject property anywhere with just a fence permit. So a 4-foot fence is permittable anywhere kind of between the street and the house and in the rear yard. Just subject to a 3-foot setback from the right of way. For 6-foot fences, the following applies here. They're by right allowed towards the rear of a residence in the interior yard, so in the rear yard and in the interior street yard. They're also allowed in street yards subject to a special administrative permit. And then I quickly want to pull up the application here. And so the fence for the most part is permittable by right anywhere towards the rear of the house and in the interior side yard. It is really that small segment that is between the house and the street that requires a special administrative permit. So that was what the special administrative permit was submitted for. The case timeline overall is the applicant submitted an initial fence permit application on February 15th, to which we notified them that a special administrative permit was required. That special administrative permit was submitted on February 16th. Public notice sign was posted on February 22nd. That started a 30-day waiting period to obtain public comment, which we have received two instances of public comment on this. And then the community development director finally made the decision on March 26th. I'll show you all the components of the application here. So the top right, this little box that I put in there is what's required in the application forms. So there's a site plan, project details and photos, and the project narrative is required. This is the entirety of the project narrative that was submitted to us. So it simply states that the 3 criteria for the special administrative permit are met. This is the site plan that was submitted. And on the right-hand side, you can see a detail for the design of the fence. In this case, it's a 6-foot privacy fence, a 6-foot wooden privacy fence. We've received 2 instances of public comment on the special administrative permit. They're included as part of your package as well. I summarized them briefly here. That the fence would be unattractive, that it would negatively affect the character of the safe and open neighborhood, and then that they would be, or that the person who made the comment would be in support if the fence aligned with the side of the house or would not go between the house and the street. And then denial reasons, why we ended up denying the case. Number 1, the applicant has not provided sufficient support to confirm that the approval criteria are met. So this is the risk of having a short and concise application, is if you don't provide the reasons for the approval of the criteria, the staff will have to seek them out themselves, which we did. We visited the site and went on Winden Court as well as Heatherdale Lane, and found that no other property on those streets has a fence in a street yard. We've considered the public comment here that seems to be in similar nature, that it is not something that is fitting with the community character. And then one of the criteria is the minimum relief necessary. And we didn't have anything to go off here why the 10-foot encroachment was necessary to start with, and also why the 10-foot is the minimum relief that is necessary. So for these reasons, we denied the special administrative permit, and we shared that with the applicants. And with this, I'll conclude the staff presentation. We'll do it without a formal recommendation because it is an appeal of a decision that we made. The motions are a bit complicated on this. The options seem to be sort of contradicting slightly, so I would ask you all to really look closely to the motion sheet. The options are number 1, reverse the staff decision to deny the SAP, which would in fact approve the SAP and would allow the project to move forward. A second option is to affirm the staff decision to deny the SAP, which would in fact deny the SAP and make the project infeasible for the area between the street and the home. And third, you also have the right to modify the staff decision to deny the SAP, which then in fact would approve the SAP subject to specific conditions that you all are setting. We have this week, we have received public comment. We've received 5 emails from neighbors in support of this project. And we have emailed them just earlier today, and I hope you all have received them. We have them, if need be, we have them on the computer and we can pull them up. But the overall tone was that neighbors are expressing gratitude for the property owners to have cleaned up the property from the previous property owner. They've recently bought this and have improved the property. And then that these letters of support state that the fence will in fact not detract from the open feel in the neighborhood that people referenced. And with this, I'd like to conclude the presentation and we're ready for
Thank you.
any questions.
Thank you, staff, for all of that detail. And,
Yeah.
and I think what matters is what someone says in the motion and not necessarily which option number. That's just sort of an arbitrary listing, but it will matter the way that you state it in the motion that you make. Okay, thank you, staff, for all of that detail. Would the applicant like to come forward and present your case? And please state your name and your address.
Matthew Kennedy, the property is 2444 Winton Court. Sort of setback, but two people want to build entire structures in a setback in 3 minutes, they're approved. We're talking about a fence here, folks, just a fence. I can just give this to you all first. Understanding where the edge of that fence would be relative to the corner now.
And if you'll allow me just to state for the record that the applicant submitted a photo of the side yard where the fence extension would go. So I don't know that I need to show it, but just for the record, that's what the applicant presented to the board. And again, the next photo is of the rear of the yard where the looking at the house from the street, the backyard.
And then next, it was mentioned that there were 5 emails that report.
I think the proper way to do it is like to make a motion to accept these items as part of the record.
Okay, so do I also need to ask if staff has seen this information or no? I just would like to move that the documents submitted to the board by the applicant be incorporated into public record. Do I have a second?
Second. Is that all?
Is there anything else?
I just want to point out, he said there were 5 letters supporting, or there's 7.
We got those.
All 7?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the documents as public record. I have a second. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Artie, did you vote?
No, I didn't vote.
Okay.
I no objection. I guess no one objected to it, so I support it.
Right.
Okay.
I'm thinking like a lawyer.
You were.
You are a lawyer. Okay, so the motion passes to accept those documents into public record. I should say that they're actually photos, not documents, but
Okay, yeah, good point.
thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, to the extent that we have identified both the erroneous material facts claimed by Richard McLeod, and I'm assuming you know who he is and why I mentioned his name, and further have provided material facts which Richard ignores in his letter of denial, it is palpable that his decision to reject our application is arbitrary, in conflict with the material facts, and with prejudice. Regarding the letter of denial from Richard McLeod, paragraph, I'm assuming you all have it.
Yes, we have
Okay.
seen it. Thank you.
Paragraph 1, Richard McLeod states that, quote, the absence of supporting documentation requires the staff to evaluate the criteria on its own, end quote. As noted in detail in our letter of appeal, we made extensive contact with Allegra de Noyer and Paul Leonhardt and John Hennigan's office to do everything we could to try to provide a response to the criteria, which by all logic could not be satisfied due to its ambiguity. What possible information could we have provided to the effect that having the fence located 10 feet into the side yard will not be detrimental to the public health? We could understand that potentially hazardous items could be called into question using this criteria, such as installing an underground propane tank or erecting a 30-foot high retaining wall. But how should we respond to the demand to show that locating a 6-foot high fence 10 feet from the corner of the house is not detrimental to the public safety? It's absurd. As an architect, I designed entire buildings in Dunwoody, and there was never any criteria which required demonstrating that a building was not detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, and for good reason. There is a legal point, I think there's a lawyer, known as Russell's teapot. How do you prove a negative? How do we prove that the location of the fence is not detrimental to the welfare of the community? How do we prove that the location of the fence is not injurious to the property? And we're just talking about a 6-foot fence here. We asked repeatedly, how could we satisfy the development department in providing an acceptable response? And we're told repeatedly that we should simply say that the location of the fence will not be detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of the public, just as other people did in their special administrative permit applications, to which we provided specific examples in our appeal package. And they received no rebuke for the same response we provided. Paragraph 2. Richard states, quote, no other property on Wyndham Court or Heatherdale Lane has a fence in a street yard closer to the street than the house, unquote. This is a false statement. Simple. Apparently, Richard did not go to the end of Heatherdale Lane, because if he did, he would have seen the house on the corner that has a fence extending into the side yard. And if he would have turned his head to the right, he would have seen a massive corner side yard fence 50 yards down the street, which he should have been aware of, since this information was provided to him in our submission. As for Wyndham Court, the street is a cul-de-sac, so there are only 2 corners, ours and Don's Schiff on the opposite corner. Don has submitted a letter to Allegra in support of our fence plan. More importantly, absolutely nothing in the ordinance, and specifically the 3 codified criteria, states that either commonality of a feature in the neighborhood is a criteria for approval, or to what definable area such commonality might even be considered. Per Part 1, Chapter 1, Section 1-4 definitions of the ordinance, the term neighborhood is not even given a definition. So Richard McLeod defining the neighborhood as he sees it to be only 2 streets is completely arbitrary. His statement, neighbors state, which turns out to be 1 person. He states, quote, neighbors state that comparable fences are not typical in the neighborhood and in their opinion distract from the neighborhood character, unquote, errors in the material facts. In our submission for the special permit, we provided photographic evidence that clearly shows that a 6-foot fence in the side yard is, as material fact, a common feature in the neighborhood, as there are 2 such conditions which can be seen at the end of Heatherdale Lane. One of these 2 houses has a side yard fence that extends at least 30 feet into the side yard. In fact, we submitted 12 examples of corner fences in the area which extend into the side yard, a material fact of which Richard makes no mention. Secondly, he makes the statement, quote, neighbors state that comparable fences are not typical in the neighborhood and in their opinion distract from the neighborhood character, unquote. What an amazingly contradictory statement this is. Apparently these fences that aren't there detract from the neighborhood character. And examining the statement about character further, we must first consider that nowhere in the 3 criteria listed in the ordinance is character ever mentioned. Further to which, the ordinance itself does not even provide a definition of character, which most assuredly is intentional, as this is not to be considered a criteria. Otherwise, it would have been listed as criteria item number 4. And given all of this, if the board is willing, contrary to the codified rules in regard to this matter, declare arbitrarily the claim that neighborhood character is an undocumented criteria for our fence, then we must examine the use of the term neighborhood character. Since this term is not defined in the ordinance, there is only one possible other document to examine, which is referenced by the ordinance. That document is the City of Dunwoody 2020 to 2040 Comprehensive Plan, which Pond and Company was commissioned by the city to create. The comprehensive plan contains on page 19 what is titled a, quote, character areas map. This map defines areas of the city which have been determined as having common characteristics. The character area in which our property is located is called the suburban neighborhood and encompasses every property which we provided in our initial application, as well as all 21 of the other properties we additionally will be providing tonight for examination here. In summary of this paragraph, the statements are capricious, arbitrary, and false. Paragraph 3. Richard McLeod states, quote, in the absence of convincing supporting information, the staff was unable to confirm that the request is in fact for the minimum necessary to afford relief, unquote. If there is an absence of convincing information on any of the criteria, it is because the staff would not tell us what they wanted other than to say that we comply with the 3 criteria. To that end, when I talked with Paul Leonhardt, I asked him what else we could possibly provide beyond the certified survey showing the location of the fence and a detailed drawing of the fence construction and our statement that we are in compliance with the 3 criteria. He told me you do not need to submit anything else. Richard states that, quote, the submitted application does not quantify the distance of the setback encroachment, nor provides evidence that a 6-foot fence is necessary, unquote. First, his statement about not quantifying the distance is patently false. You just saw it up on the screen. We presented him with a survey and we showed the fence in big letters, 10 feet. Our submission was clearly noted in red graphics on a certified survey showing the location of the fence, along with a notation in writing that the distance of the fence past the rear corner of the house was 10 feet. His statement is yet another false statement of the material facts. And once again, after we repeatedly tried to have both Allegra and Paul tell us what more they wanted us to say in our application, other than make it in a paragraph form, considering that nowhere in the 3 criteria is the height of the fence mentioned, neither of them mentioned that we should say why we want a 6-foot high fence. If they would have told us this, we could have responded accordingly as we did in our letter of appeal. Lastly, Richard states that having determined that the fence does not fit with the neighborhood character, of which we provided numerous examples in our application, that in fact the fence is a common neighborhood feature, he concludes falsely that, quote, the staff finds that the proposed fence could be considered a granting of special privilege inconsistent with the limitations upon other similarly situated properties and is not consistent with all relevant purpose and intent statements of the zoning ordinance, unquote. When I asked Allegra and Paul what it meant to be consistent with all relevant purpose and intent statements that they relate to the location of the fence, neither one could provide a coherent answer. It must be beyond obvious that there is a relative purpose to the location of a fence in a side yard. Otherwise, there would be no ordinance provision for a special application permit for a fence to be allowed in a side yard. So Richard's statement is arbitrary and in direct conflict with the ordinance itself. Given that there are already 6-foot high fences in side yards in the neighborhood, the community and the character area map for our location, which would probably number in the hundreds, the idea that our fence extending a mere 10 feet into the side yard would somehow extend a special privilege to us is nonsensical and is certainly ignoring the material facts. Next, noting that Richard McLeod specifically calls into account the opposition from the neighbors, that being one person, Heather Hastings, who wrote a letter and one person who is basically goaded by Heather Hastings into sending an email saying ditto. And that information was only provided to us within the past week. We will now examine thoroughly the objection from Heather Hastings. Hastings' letter shows little understanding of what we're proposing and throws in a spatter of contempt for me and my wife. Though she has never bothered to speak with us, while so many other people in the neighborhood have done so and even invited us into their homes. She calls our fence, quote, the planned development, unquote. Obviously, in order to try to connotate the fence as a major construction project. It's a fence. She claims the fence would, quote, change the character of the neighborhood, unquote. First, there is no changing the character of the neighborhood listed as a criteria for the location of the fence, period. But even if you were to ignore the criteria in the code and harbor the false idea that character is going to be a criteria for our fence, the character of the neighborhood has been set not only by homes that have corner fences that extend into the side yard, for which we are providing dozens of examples, but also by Heather Hastings herself, who has a fence. She says that the fence would be, quote, an eyesore. Every person that we have spoken to in the neighborhood has told us that that portion of the fence that we have already built under the permissible rules of the ordinance is beautiful. Not one person approached us to complain, not even Heather. She says that she does not know if, quote, residents of the immediate surrounding area were queried or if, for that matter, a community impact study was done, unquote. Well, I could ask the same question. Did the city do any of this? Nothing in the ordinance says that I have to perform any of these things. So if we were to understand from Richard that this would somehow be important, why didn't the city do it? I talked to Cindy Hansen at John Hannigan's office, and to my incredulousness, she told me that the city does not actually go out and look at the property in our situation, which Paul confirmed when I talked to him. But apparently, according to Richard, the city did go to the site. They just didn't do a good job of making observations. So Hastings has no reason to claim that the lack of some sort of unidentified community impact study is a cause for denial. She states, quote, there are no other side street fences in our community, unquote. This is a flat out lie, plain and simple. We have given the city ample photograph evidence to the contrary, and if Hastings drives her and walks through the community, she would have to be blind not to see the fences in side yards. She concedes that, quote, there are a couple of fences that run along part of the property, but do not run up to the side street, unquote. Again, she is merely stating her ignorance to what we are doing. We are not even remotely going to run up to the side street property line. There are houses in the community that have fences that are closer to front streets than our fence will be to the side street due to the fact that the non-quarter lots are permitted to erect fences in side yards within 3 feet of the front corner of the house. She states, quote, I would strongly urge the permit to only be allowed for the fence to continue up along the side of the house, which allows that property to have privacy for its backyard, but not to be an eyesore to the community, unquote. In regard to her calling our fence an eyesore, if you want to see an eyesore to the community, go look at the awful condition of her fence, which is clearly visible from the street. There is nothing about our fence being 10 feet from the corner of the house instead of at the corner that is going to create an eyesore. And if she would have bothered to ever talk to us during the apparently many, many times she walks up and down Heatherdale Lane, as other people did, she would have learned that our intent with the location of the fence is to, in fact, create a place for a vegetable garden or lawn equipment that would actually be hidden by the fence, as opposed to having to place things at the other only level spot in the backyard, which would be at the top of the hill, which would then make everything visible from Heatherdale Lane over the top of the fence. You can see that from that photograph. It's extremely sloping backyard. If we're going to go level, then we have to go up high and you'd see right over the fence. She states, quote, I will say that I have spoken with several members of the neighborhood, all of whom are opposed to this project. As you know, one email can often represent several folks who have not reached out, unquote. In other words, I can't get anyone else to state their position. I'm just going to say that people oppose it. Well, I can tell you that every last person that stopped to talk with me and my wife and ask about the city sign in our yard, and that was at least 8 to 10 people, stated that they had no objection to the location of the fence. We invited people into our yard to see the location for themselves. And the hatchet job. She states, quote, lastly, please note that these are new owners and have immediately began making changes to the property. For example, they removed several mature pine trees from the front yard. Although many things are within their rights, I would hope they also have conferred with their neighbors about how the proposed changes would affect the community. The previous owners, for example, often played in the unfenced yard with their children. You can't measure an impact like that in terms of neighbors being able to know each other and build the fabric of the community, unquote. Well, let's examine all that. What does the fact that we are new owners have to do with the location of this fence? The inference is clear that she has not accepted us as members of the community. And yes, we immediately started making what she calls changes to the property. We're not lazy people. Those changes were viewed by everyone else in the neighborhood as improvements and cleaning up the property. So yes, we immediately started making changes for the better. And what is the point of making up the lie that we cut down several mature pine trees? Got folks here who attest to that. Because a lie is exactly what it is. Any neighbor within the sightline of our property will be able to tell you that there wasn't even one pine tree in the yard to take down, yet alone mature pines. We even noted the fact that there were no pines as we considered buying the home. Did we talk about the changes with our neighbors? We sure did. We conferred with every neighbor about the fence who was neighborly enough to wave to us from the street and introduce themselves and welcome us to the neighborhood. And they all expressed their enthusiasm and approval of what we were doing to improve the property and increase the property values of the neighborhood, including the fence. Heather stipulates that apparently we should risk the health, safety, and welfare of our grandchildren by having them play in the unfenced yard as the previous owners did. This from a woman who has a fenced yard for her own children. I can tell you how you can measure the impact on the neighbors as she claims. The impact of a person claiming that someone else is hurting the neighborhood by putting up a fence when she has a fence and saying that it will somehow prevent neighbors from knowing each other, when after only 2 months, my wife and I have talked with probably 24 neighbors, while she has never bothered to talk to us even once, after claiming that she often walks Heatherdale Lane. This is what is detrimental to building the fabric of the community. And quickly regarding Samuel Alter, the only thing he said beyond he agrees with Heather is, quote, that such a fence would negatively affect the character of our safe and open neighborhood, unquote. Our fence will not make the neighborhood any less safe. And if he wants an open neighborhood, he should first petition the city to order Heather Hastings to remove the fence at her house so he can create a more open neighborhood. We will still have more of an open side yard with our proposed fence location than Heather has at her yard. To close, I will say this. My wife and I are believers in rules, which is why we did not simply build the fence and ignore the rules, as every neighbor told us was our mistake. It's because we follow the rules that we're here today. We have provided dozens of examples of side yard fences, and we probably only have accounted for 1% of the number of side yard fences that actually exist in Dunwoody. Allegra and Paul both emphatically told us that this was all simply procedure, that they simply had to make us go through it. Despite our efforts to implore them to tell us what we could possibly want in order to, in an application approved without reservations, they refused to tell us anything other than to provide what we provided. When I talked to Allegra after we had made our submission and asked her what problems she could possibly have with our fence, what do you see as a health problem? How does it affect the welfare of citizens of the Dunwoody? She replied, and I quote, I did not say I have any problems with it. It is unquestionable that the rejection of our application was arbitrary and prejudiced. And this board should be on the side of providing even-handed enforcement of the ordinance instead of allowing side yards for some and no side yard fences for others. Next, we'd like to go through these letters of support that you have. You want to pass them to each other?
Mr. Kennedy, with all due respect, we have seen them today and we would like to be able to continue the rest of the process for our consideration of your appeal. And because we have read them all today, I would like to suggest that we move forward. It is your right to continue. I just want to make sure we can get to the rest of the aspects
Okay,
of
as
your,
long as you've read those letters of support.
we
Okay.
have.
All right, then we have got a whole bunch of additional properties.
We have your entire application,
No,
the
you don't have
original,
these.
we have your original application and we have your appeal application.
Okay.
And we have
These-
seen the pictures in which you had labeled fences in each of the 11 properties or 12 or however many it was.
Well, these are photographs of properties we just took this week.
Okay. Staff, have you seen this? Because I need to,
We have not
we-
reviewed those.
we have to
fences.
vote to allow it.
Yeah,
If
it's-
staff hasn't seen it
I-
and it's new evidence for your case, then
Yeah,
we-
I would suggest if y'all are interested in reviewing additional information beyond what was initially submitted, to allow us to take a look at that first and then defer the case to the next meeting.
so I am going to suggest that we move forward through the remaining components of this appeal. And during board discussion, if we feel that we need additional documentation that the applicant has, that we request it to be submitted as part of the application and decide if we need to defer so that staff also has a chance to look at it. Or if possibly we are able to come to a conclusion without needing to defer the case. Because introducing new evidence at this point would require us to have to defer. Is there anything else that you would like to say that does not involve introducing new evidence?
No.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Oop, I keep turning it off. At this time, is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of the appeal of the case? And if so, please come forward and do we have comment cards? Did they?
They've put out a public comment card. I was saying, please do ask them. I think it's the only comment that we have today.
Okay,
They ask them to just make their name and address known
right.
before. Yeah.
So if you could please state, when you make your comment, please state your name and address, and I will advise from a public comment that we have 10 minutes for comments in favor and 10 minutes for comments in opposition. Yes. 10 minutes for each, but since you're together, yes?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
We are Alan and Kim Farnell. We're the next door neighbors of the Kennedys. Oh, and we're at 4978 Heatherdale Lane. So we're at the corner of the next street.
No, we have our fence is further into our yard. So it's not gonna meet theirs.
But it's right at, it's up against our property, yeah.
We have the backyard of where you look backyard.
Yes, they look, yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Just want to make sure. I'm, all right, I'm holding up a picture of where the fence is going to go, and the house behind it is your house. Thank you.
So I'll just speak quickly and then if you want to add anything.
And can you state your name too, please?
Yes, Kim Farnell, 4978 Heatherdale Lane. Since the Kennedys have purchased the house, the prior owners are very nice people, did not do anything to the yard to better the appearance of the yard or the aesthetics of the yard. Structures were left in the yard. They dismantled the structures, have cleaned up the yard, taken down some dead trees. And really, honestly, just in the short time they've been there, the yard is so much more aesthetically pleasing. The fence is not an eyesore. It's merely, to his point, it is merely just a fence. And 10 feet is not that far up. When you look at, if you can tell where he said in the picture, it comes up a little bit and then he's cut, and then he's going right back in. So it's not like he's going all down the side yard, to create like a barrier. It's just 10 feet. We have absolutely no problem with it. And we look at the back of their house every day. Like I said, it's already created, just the fence that was allowed to be built is already more aesthetically pleasing. Other neighbors have said the same thing. And we're in absolute support of the 10-foot addition.
I'd only add that everything that the Kennedys have done have made the property better. I think it's been everything that they've improved on. So.
Thank you. And again, there is no one here to speak in opposition. Okay. So we are now moving into board discussion.
Okay, can I go? All right. I mean, can the applicant come up? Because I'm just gonna try to
And just
streamline this.
is the applicant, I'm only seeing the applicant, Margaret Kennedy, listed on the actual application. So I wanted to get clarification. Okay.
Yeah.
But then I would say if you're the applicant on the title, you should be up at the podium with him, please.
All right, so I'm gonna start by this. I know you were trying to compare what happened to it. This is a totally different analysis for us. I have to actually shift gear compared to what the other approval have been. It's just not a comparison at all. I'm looking for, and I might be wrong. If I'm wrong, someone tell me. I'm looking for two things. I'm looking for whether, number one, there was an error in finding of a material fact. That means there was something that they saw that was not right, probably. It's a material fact. The second thing I'm looking for is whether they just said deny, no reason. So those are the two things that I'm looking for. Okay. And then, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to answer some of these questions. You guys try to answer these questions for me. Okay. So what we're looking to do is that if you had a 4-foot fence, no problem. That's it by right. Because you have a 6-foot fence, then you have to have a permit for that. And because of that, they have to review it. So it's their discretion to be able to see and look at certain things. Now, they told me that, so you're looking to put a 6-foot fence, but a 10-foot buffer, right?
No,
Okay,
we are looking to come 10 feet from the back corner of the house into the side yard. If we simply started the fence right at the corner of the house,
okay.
we wouldn't have to ask you for any approval.
We're
at
right.
all.
We're on the same page. Okay. So we're on the same page. No, we're on the same page. We're on the same page. I'm not gonna cut you off. You're right. I'm not for against, I'm just trying to understand something, but we're on the same page. That means you're looking 10 foot and then 6-foot fence, right?
6-foot fence.
All right. And then, okay, so the first thing that staff did not find, and I'm reading, okay, I'm not determining, is did not find any other property on Wyndham Court or Heatherdale Lane that has a fence in a street yard closer to the street than the house. How do you respond to that?
It's false.
Okay, tell me.
Okay, right at the end of Heatherdale Lane at Coldstream, there's a house there. It's one of the pictures. We've
Show me that picture. Hmm? I know. So we're looking for any other property on Wyndham Court or Heaterdale.
We had a lot of pictures here. We had a lot of pictures.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's that, I mean,
Here it is.
okay, go ahead. And what is that house on Window Court?
It is on,
It's on Heaterdale.
it's on Heatherdale and the side yard is on Coldstream.
Okay, go ahead. Can I keep it for a second? Because I'm gonna use it.
And just for note, that picture was in our packet, right? This is not,
You've taken a picture this week.
this is a new picture that the applicant has taken.
Well, and I'd like to say this in response to your question, just because I took the picture now and gave it to you is a material fact.
No,
It doesn't mean
listen.
it doesn't exist.
Listen, you gotta work with me, okay? I'm just trying to get to the facts so we could get out of here at some point, okay? That's it, and I'm gonna try to streamline it. Staff, have you seen that picture?
I think we have not, it was not part of the submitted package.
No, we're not. But,
We have not, I can't confirm.
so, okay. And you didn't give them that picture before, right?
I don't know. We gave them 12 different properties.
Okay,
I
all
don't know
right,
if that was one of them or not.
all right. So the second thing is staff also received, let me just see staff also received public comment that corroborated this is not a common feature in the neighborhood. And you're saying that it is a common feature.
Yes,
And why do you say it's a common feature?
because there are multiple houses who have fences inside yards.
Yeah, but when I look at your neighborhood, it looks like an open neighborhood. Like there's not that many
I
fences.
don't know what you're looking at then. I mean,
Okay,
You can look at the photographs.
Chain link fences, there are fences throughout that neighborhood.
You can stand on Heatherdale Lane and look at a house that, as I said already, I told you, it's in that package where the fence is 30 feet into the side yard. It's there, and they can't say that that wasn't part of the package. I know that was in the package.
I saw the house at McBain and Coldstream and I saw that fence and
And it's massive, and it's
there
not
are-
even coming from the back corner of the house. It's on the front corner of the house.
okay, we have the packet on a device here that we're reviewing.
That's probably 300 yards from our property.
okay. All right, so that's the second thing. And why do you guys want a 6-foot fence as opposed to the 4-foot fence?
It's a valid
Listen,
question
we're-
because I think that's,
See,
you're hung up
see,
on
right.
the law of it.
So-
The city wants to,
Okay. if
it's
you wanna know
relevant,
why,
it's relevant.
We're not gonna live at the house. We bought this house for our daughter. All right. I don't want to go into I don't feel I should have to divulge medical information on our daughter, but she grows all of her fruits and vegetables and so on. She has medical issues that she deals with, and she grows everything. She has a house over in Smyrna now, and I fenced that yard. Oddly enough, in Smyrna, she has almost the identical property, and I built a 6-foot fence all the way into the side yard there. So she has this beautiful garden, little plastic hot houses. She grows year round, even in the winter time. And we're trying to move her back closer to us in Dunwoody. So one of the things that's important is that she has a place where she can do the gardening. All right, we've been telling the folks that it's so you can't see swing sets and so on, and that's true. And I'm going to catch hell when I get home for this. But again, this is a major issue for us. And when we bought the house, I was the one who said, well, this is the perfect place for her to put all her gardening. This is a flat area down here. She can put all of her stuff here. This is where the sun is going to hit, and she can have a bigger garden as she's got over in Smyrna. We'll fence this. We'll put a 6-foot high fence here, and it'll be great.
Okay.
And
That's fine. That's fine. You see the exercise that we've had here, right? That's what's necessary for you to get that permit. Is that you see all the narrative that you give me with so and so, it because they have to fit in things in a certain slot. Now you just told me why you needed a 6-foot. I read this whole thing and I never knew why. And then is it hold on.
we would have
I'm trying hold on.
We would have said
Forget what happened before, right?
Right.
And then the second thing is you know, when I ask you about the character, you don't have to find me. I want to know. So I'm trying to figure out if you fit in those things or not fit in those things, because otherwise it's arbitrary. Otherwise, they just said something. Maybe they said something that was not. So that's the reason for my questions, and probably some of the others at the board. It's not that we determine it, but we gotta fit it in. Otherwise, you know what's gonna happen? So that's what. Well, thank you for your answers. Like the board might have some other.
So I just want the staff to clarify for me, because there seems to be some confusion about the 10 feet away from the house that that had nothing to do with the denial. Is that true or false?
Is that question for staff?
Yes, it is for staff because it's there.
So one of the criteria is that it's the minimum relief necessary.
Right.
So that's inherently something that is quantifiable, right?
Correct.
It is something that is somewhere, and then it's somewhere where it's not that anymore.
Correct.
So in that instance, yes, this is sort of the question that we had is like, why is it 10 feet deep? Why doesn't it have to be 20? Why is it necessary at all? And then the same is true with the height, kind of why does it need to be thick?
That part. But most people's fences don't just attach to their home. There is some separation from the side of your house. So I was trying to visualize my own house, which I'm not on a side street. We'll say that much. So I was trying to decide if 10 foot was too much. I couldn't decide. And that thank you so much. Because of course we look to the left. I know it's not on a side street, but that's more than 10 feet to the left of the front of the house. So 10 feet is, what's the setback legally from the side street?
So the setback overall is 35 feet. The fences can be in setbacks, so fences aren't impacted by setbacks. It's just the location. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I
So
actually
the
have
10 foot, we just needed to sort of understand more, which we sort of got a bigger picture of why the yard, they wanted that extra 10 by whatever the length is. Thank you.
I have a question for staff, one quick question. If they would have put together a packet and answered the questions, as you said, in paragraph form, and like answered why they wanted a 10 foot, or I'm sorry, a 6-foot high fence, why they wanted it to encroach or not encroach, but 10 feet away from the corner of their house, would that have changed anything the city would have decided?
It would have had made, I mean, it would have helped us tremendously to adjudicate. I don't want to speculate as to how kind of,
Okay,
but yes, it would have been helpful.
okay. That's what I wanted to make sure of. Thank you.
I'd just like to clarify one thing. We felt we were asking the right questions to find out what we needed to provide, what we were lacking, and we got nowhere. So miscommunication, I don't think so, but you know, we asked for help. We asked, what do we need to provide to get this? And this is why we're here
All the way to
today.
John Hennigan's office. We were asking desperately for help.
So I found a lot of helpful, very helpful information in your appeal letter. I understood from the appeal letter, which I did not, and I didn't review the initial application. That wasn't my role, that was staff. But I noted that in your appeal application, there was much more detail, including the fact that because your backyard is so high and then sloped, there would be no place for a garden, a place at level ground. And so that made very clear sense of why you wanted to push out 10 feet. Also, where am I going? Children playing, wanting to maybe obscure some of these items in a yard that you don't necessarily want to be made visible to everyone. You're certainly entitled to have a fence as a standard improvement for a home. So understanding why you needed the parameters of this fence to go beyond what would, you know, just require a simple fence permit and now requires a special administrative is very helpful. So I appreciate all the detail that I read in your appeal letter. I did want to make one comment in terms of how you were supposed to have responded to the question of the not being detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare. And I think you all were trying to figure out how could we have responded to that. I did see somewhere someone comment about the fence will not block visibility when turning onto one street. And so that I think was the intent of, or that's one response as to proving that it will not be detrimental to the public health or safety in particular. So I just wanted to make that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and it, you know, it's a lengthy process even for something like a fence, right? I know it's a lot. So you know, it's just guys are just hanging in there, and I would agree. The appeal letter was very informative, so I think that is very helpful for this board and illustrating things. Now, I will say though, you know, in hearing what you guys were saying earlier, you guys are really hung up on the public health piece of it, but I just want to make sure you all know that's just one portion of it. The minimum necessary to afford relief is a key one that I always look at, because it's kind of like, what's your hardship, right? Because to your point earlier, if you were not go out that 10 feet right into the not right away, but into your side lot, you could put a 6 foot up there, no problem, right? So it was really the interpretation and communication and transparency and understanding at the why, right? And that is key critical. And I'm just saying, I'm not rushing to the city's defense or anything or any particular individuals, but knowing the why is very important and things like that. And I'm not saying you have to share every little granular detail about your life and things like that, because I certainly understand all that, but it helps provide a lot of clarity for that because, you know, I mean, let's face it, neighbors and things like that, there's going to be change. Not everyone reacts to change the same way. And so we try to look at this as objectively as possible, try not to necessarily use precedent. And to be frank, a lot of the things that people put in their fences included aren't necessarily permitted to begin with. And unless someone's calling code enforcement, we don't know when it was built and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to make note of that because I know you guys really really focused on the detrimental health. And I agree, a fence is not gonna necessarily be detrimental to health, but by code, the side lot, anything, and maybe it's a good opportunity for us to all understand the code better and maybe create revisions to the code, because I'm not on the side lot either, but like Claire mentioned, you know, bumping out a little bit maybe isn't the worst thing to do either, you know, and to incorporate it as part of your side lot. And to your point, you've got a lot of side lot to work with, and you didn't take all of that. You didn't say, I want to go up to the public right away. So, I mean, that checks a box for me too, as far as what I'm looking at. So I just wanted to put that out there as far as saying there's probably a lot of layers of communication here, and neighbors and stuff like that, some for, some against. And so just wanted to make that part of the record.
I mean, I'm as I'm thinking through this, and you guys tell me, it seems as if there are things that probably the city didn't have before. I know this communication has what like to me, and I read the entire packet at the end of the day. And I didn't come forward against truthfully on this one. I'm thinking that you guys should probably go back. The city should probably check out these addresses and make sure that they are on the streets, because if they are houses, in fact,
they're not all on.
hold on. See, that's how you get in trouble, because we're trying to help you out and then you just going, you know? So the city should probably figure out, maybe it's, you know, because that determines whether it's issue of privilege or not. But these are new pictures that they didn't have a chance to see. So, and then in light of what has come in, the fact that the fence is needed for a special reason, not just because you just want a 6-foot fence. You know, that's the difference, you know, because 4 feet is fine. But once you start going, then you're actually asking for something outside of what's normal. So then they have to actually consider it. So that's where it comes in. So my suggestion, and you don't have to take it, you know, I'm thinking that maybe you guys should probably go at it again. The city should have a chance to look at some of these things, and maybe some new facts, the facts as I'm seeing it would be different. And it's not that I'm looking to push it, but I just think that there's a lot of stuff that weren't really understood or appreciated in this case.
Artie, I want to just let the board know that I went out and drove through the particular, the close neighborhood and then the broader neighborhood today. And I saw that there were homes with fences in street yards at these intersections. And when I say intersection, I don't mean like Tilly Mill and North Peachtree, because that is a minor arterial front road and they are under different guidelines. But I saw the home mentioned at Coldstream and McBain that was mentioned in the packet. There's 2 there. These all had fences in some manner of street yard. Coldstream and Firth, Coldstream and Glen Bonnie, there were 2 houses, Dilverton and Redcliffe. And then there was a home on Coldstream that has a wrought iron fence in the front yard. I don't know that that necessarily translates, because it's a very different type of fence, but I don't want to delay this. I don't want to defer, but I do want to let you all know that I saw these homes that had, and it's not, you know, it's not exactly at Wyndon and Heatherdale, but it might be 2 streets over.
But, you know, the only thing with this is different than a regular thing. See, now we're not determining whether this is it. What we're determining is whether the city just said, oh, forget it. And it just seems to me as if there were things that were not understood. I'm not taking for the city, not understood by the city. And because it wasn't given, just as we have to pull some stuff, they made a decision.
I agree.
So I wanted to give them some chance to maybe change that, but anyway.
Okay, I wanted to address that the criteria of not granting a special privilege, kind of going to what you were saying. I do feel that criteria had been met. I do agree that maybe not these exact examples I'm providing, but that there was a lot of information that was lacking in the initial submission. So I'm not exactly addressing whether city acted arbitrarily or if there was an erroneous finding of material fact, I almost feel like there wasn't enough material fact. I don't feel like it was an erroneous finding, but I know I'm taking this into a different aspect of this.
Well, I have a question for the city or the staff. Can I, do you mind? So if, let's just sort of walk this through. If we defer because there's more information, it's really information for us. You're just, because you've made a decision. We're the only people that can either reverse it or affirm it or tinker with it, I guess is the third option. So really you reviewing all these photographs, which we appreciate, and more information. We can't they can't reapply and we can't start over again. We've already started. You've made a decision. So the deferral is just for us to sort of absorb, you confirm, or we make a decision based on what we've heard tonight and with our own understanding of Dunwoody and the way we all live and what some due diligence done by Ellen. So that was my question and I've answered it for you, but you can confirm.
No, that's correct. So like the process is ongoing. So what we would like to do with new materials, we would like to take a look at it, confirm it, and because we don't know, we don't know what any of this is. Yeah.
So if we were ever to look at this and use it in our decision, you would need to look at it. But if we don't look at these pictures.
Yeah, correct.
And we only use the applicants, the packet they put together to appeal. If we look at just the appeals packet and the information we got tonight, that's the criteria you wouldn't need to.
You can use the testimony that was made, and you can use the testimony that the applicant made.
But
if you strongly would use those images specifically, then I think we would want to take a
the
look
chance
at
to make sure that, okay, thank you for.
And actually, Paul, one other question. So relating to what our action options are, if we wanted to sustain the appeal, it has to be on the basis that the decision was based on an erroneous finding of a material fact, or that the director acted in an arbitrary manner. So I'm trying to see if there is an option to say, well, it wasn't, it maybe wasn't based on an erroneous finding, or maybe can I classify the finding was made based on a lack of information, a lack of material facts. I don't know if that's.
So don't overthink it too much.
Yes,
I
exactly.
mean, errors can be made for a lot of different reasons, right? What you have to do, this is the code requirement. So you have to shoehorn into those criteria, the way you always do it. Like that at the end of the day, every variance needs to come down to the variance criteria. And the discussion leads to that. So in this case, I don't think you have to say Richard McLeod is someone who makes bad decisions. You do it on the facts that are before you all today. You all would make a determination if this criteria is met. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
One thing I wanted to piggyback on Claire, though, that I wasn't quite clear about, is just clarification for me. So if we, hypothetically, if we move to, defer, thank you. If we move to defer, your decision, are we reintroducing this into your bucket, so to speak, to make a new determination?
No.
Okay, so yours is final as it stands now. So my point is this, deferral is doing what for us?
No, well, here's what I think defer is, and listen to me, I'm not bent on defer, but I'm thinking, yes, the decision's not gonna change, but they're gonna get to analyze new facts. And they're gonna say, hey, listen, we checked out this. They can't change the decision, but we can't. We could do whatever we want, as a matter of fact.
But it's our facts to analyze at this point, is what I'm saying. They've already analyzed it, made a decision.
I don't know, because listen, as much as I want to believe these guys, I don't know.
No, I hear you. I hear you.
You drove. I don't. But if they go check it out, they're gonna have to tell me exactly. Listen, I didn't know, but hey, Audie, we checked it out, and this is what happened. I mean, that's all. There's some facts here that I just don't feel like that I knew, because when you're looking at the reasons for the denial, they're not wrong. They said, you know, and this because you look at the picture. I mean, listen, let's be truthful. This is a neighborhood where there's not that many fences. Okay, it's a more open neighborhood. Is it wrong? No, it's not wrong. Is it? Are they not deserving of the fence? No, but the character of this neighborhood, it's not your closed neighborhood where everybody's got a fence. You know, it's a more open neighborhood. Do they have a right to get the fence? Yeah, they should probably get the fence because they have a reason for getting the fence. You know, do you see my thinking here? But the only reason I think maybe give them a chance is because when they come back, you know, I could say, oh yeah, because that was checked out. But if 3 of you or 4 of you say, you know what, I live in this neighborhood and I think that the neighborhood is this, then that's fine with me. I just want to feel comfortable with the decision that I made. That's all. At the end of the day, I think I see where this is going to go. But you know, I want to, you know,
Well, just bear in
if
mind,
there was better communications, I think before,
I agree.
all listening to both parties,
Yeah.
maybe
I agree with
we
everything.
wouldn't be here.
I agree with everything you stated. I'm merely stating, logistically speaking, time speaking. Think about the timeline already. The applicant has put this in since February, right? And granted, in a perfect world, I wish this would have been all part of our packets and all that kind of stuff, the photos. And I'm not a civil engineer, I'm not a surveyor, I'm not going out there. It seems to me the evidence is relatively clear, even without this new stuff, that you know, there was some miscommunication probably between the city and the applicant, right? But absent that, I think the question then becomes, do we have enough of what we need? We as the board, absent of the city, even though they present it to us, because their decision is final.
Yeah.
And so us putting this back onto their bucket, putting it back into their packet and then resending it to us is, to me personally, I don't think really changes much compared to what we're looking at right now. That's all I'm saying.
I got a question though. Okay, if we're analyzing this before, the fence that we're thinking about, it goes out 10, right? Is it going to block anything, anybody view?
This
listen,
picture right here.
you're gonna get yourself in trouble. I'm just
Oh,
saying.
here, he submitted to.
No. Listen, I'm gonna listen. You see, I'm saying, you cannot shout out things. This is our thing. When you get, this is what gets you in trouble. You're trying to get something approved. Hold on. I'm gonna let you share, but this is how it kind of works. We discuss. If we want you to speak, we're gonna say, "Sir, here you go." Just like that's my profession. If I did this in court, I'll be in trouble. But I'm just saying, you know, that just let us discuss.
So already these
Yeah.
were introduced, these
Okay.
were introduced that we accepted, and he's standing, I can't say it's exactly 10 feet, but I would say it is generally looking like 10 feet.
So where he is, that's where the fence
where the
is
fence would
gonna
be.
stop.
Well, that's where it would stop into the side street, correct?
Got you.
This window right here is that window right there, so 10 feet is probably about right here.
Got you.
And then there's the remaining, probably 20, it's 35 feet.
So 25.
I think it's actually 35 feet to the right of way and then another, is it?
It's 35 to the house.
Street.
Yeah, it's
So
35
it's 50 to the street, so there's gonna be 40 feet from the edge of the fence to the street.
Okay.
So hold on, just a minute. So from where he is to the street is 40 feet, and then it's 10 feet from where he is to the side of the house.
Now, there's a fence behind him, right?
That's their
They've already built.
They've already built.
I know. Okay. That fence, how high is that feet? 6 feet, right? So he's just about maybe like 3-4 feet more than their fence is just closer to their house.
No, this is his fence.
This is
what
his
he
fence?
built. They've already built it.
That they were able to do with the fence permit, who's in the backyard.
Up and over.
Okay. So the neighbor next door doesn't have a fence. Okay. Yeah.
And you're the neighbors.
On the other side.
And they're.
They're the ones that
did not
have a problem.
Yeah, I understand. But you see the point that they were making that it's an open neighborhood is true.
Sure.
You know, I mean, all right.
It depends on,
Yeah.
on what street you're turning. And I think that the reality of the situation is it's a corner lot. It's the whole spot here.
Okay.
And I think we wouldn't be here if all of the information that we've gotten through the appeal letter had been included, and understanding that
Yeah.
there was miscommunication and misunderstandings and possibly lack of communication. I'm not pointing fingers or anything. I'm just,
Yeah,
that's what
Basically
brought us
saying no
here.
one is innocent in this case.
right. Because if we're looking at the letter of the law, they're in trouble. Because a lot of this information wasn't getting, it's not like it's erroneous. But listen, I am open to it. I see it. I think you guys, I'm fine with whatever you do. If you're gonna make a motion, make a motion. If you're gonna do something, do what you need to do.
Do it, Ryan.
Are we done doing more questions? I don't know. Anybody else? I had a lot to say. I'll be brave enough. Y'all are so crazy. All right, I make a motion to reverse the administrative decision to deny the request AP 24-05 to allow a 6-foot tall fence in the street yard.
So we have a motion on the table that reverses, make sure that I understand. Your motion is to reverse the administrative decision to deny the special administrative permit, and the result of that is that the fence special administrative permit would be approved.
That is correct.
I know, don't put it.
Okay.
Read this.
So the motion on the table is to reverse the administrative decision to deny the permit, resulting in an approval of the permit. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Okay. All those in favor?
Could you
Oh.
please repeat what the second was?
Okay.
Which Ryan wants?
The
Schwartz doing second.
Ryan Schwartz is offering this, the second on the motion.
I could have said that an hour and a half.
It was a tie.
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second. We will move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion passes to reverse the administrative decision to deny the permit, which results in the fence special administrative permit being approved. Congratulations. And thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Sir,
Kennedy's.
Mr. Kennedy, I should have remembered your name by now.
Okay. We are now moving. If I can find my agenda to other business. Board perspective on opportunities for code changes.
Yeah, that's typically we're at a much earlier time in the day at this point, so I thought I'd add it up, but we're starting the process to write a new comprehensive plan, and after that to write an entirely new development code that includes the zoning ordinance, that includes the development regulations, that includes the sign ordinance and other relevant chapters of the code. And you guys hear a lot of the cases where people want to be sort of beyond what the current code allows. So you have a good perspective on the edges of the code, so to say, kind of to, you know, what's just allowed, what's just not allowed. So I wanted to pick you all's brain on items that we can share with the consultants that you see that may not need to be as restrictive as they are, or that you see that should be more restrictive as well. And a good example is the fences and stream yards that we did. You know, if there is an item that gets regularly approved, you know, that more or less, no matter what the specific circumstances are, if it's an approval, then that is sort of a good candidate for a code change. So I asked you as homework kind of to think about this a little bit and then to discuss now as a board. Yeah.
My first, stream buffer. I think it needs to be a little bit, everybody's house is in the stream buffer in Dunwoody. I think we need to cut that back from 75, well, the Dunwoody 50 to maybe the Dunwoody 30 or even 25.
for building, and like, I mean, almost every one of our cases involves that. So I would think, you know, we've got the state at 25 and then the city at 50, maybe cut it back to just another 25, just to 25 and 25.
I actually thought it was the state was 75 or the city was 75. I think the city should go to at least the 50 would be my, you know,
Well, so.
or I'm sorry,
No, it's 75, 75 total.
sorry, a
Yeah.
25 material change.
Yeah. So
Right.
I would
I would agree.
drop it at 25.
And let me ask you, that's because we could do it two ways. One is blanket, say, should be less, like whether it's new construction or commercial construction, or we could do an exception. You know, if it's specific projects, it should be that should be exempt.
I don't know if you can, I mean, I don't know if that's possible, but I'm thinking like there's additions, there's porches, there's, you know, there's so many different things. I think it would be, I think a blanket would be the
Yeah.
way to go.
I would say whatever is a blank, I kind of agree with that, only in the sense that whatever is gonna yield the lesser of the administrative burden of just dealing with the caseload in general.
Yeah.
Now, to that point, though, there's probably always gonna be some kind of one-off or something, but I think it should apply to residential and commercial, I would say. I mean, I don't know anything about commercial, but,
Because we inherited the 50 from DeKalb County, correct?
right.
I mean, we stayed with what DeKalb had, which is why
Correct. And the 75 is fairly common
it's common.
throughout the region. Yeah.
But there's
it's-
just
but
so many streams in
Three votes,
Dunwoody.
as many as
Right?
we have.
Yeah.
I feel like it should be.
Yeah, it's a good suggestion.
And there's more, yeah, there's more homes than we realize that fall within some type of buffer, let alone stream, but stream in particular is the one that always seems to come here. The one case that I thought of, I can't remember the case of it, but they were doing an addition and it was like, it was only encroaching to like 5% of their addition was encroaching in the stream buffer. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
It wasn't a pool, it was an addition. It was like a 300 square foot addition, not even that big. But if you're not gonna do a blanket, that would probably be another way to go about doing it, being like, okay, if it's a residential application,
And the percentage.
percentage is under a certain threshold.
Yeah.
That to me, you could use that as a blanket, but make it a threshold blanket, right? It doesn't necessarily just have to be a strict numeric value of saying, you know, X number of feet, but as a percentage of would also be a relevant way to look at that.
And I would also add for consideration from a percentage standpoint of encroachment, not just in stream buffers, but also like rear or side setbacks. And front. I mean, I think the front setback is too big. I mean, because people want to build front porches. Everybody wants a front porch. And I think that we need to cut that back from 50 to like 35 or something less than what we've got.
Or let the consultants evaluate what are more
Mhm.
common number, what are kind of the national standards or what have you. The one that is always kind of tricky, I think just worthy of mention is difference between doing like a platform deck and a deck with a roof over it and the whole impervious, you know, kind of thing. I think we should I don't know what the answer is there, but I think we could look at it a little bit differently and get some advice there. Because, you know, I understand the argument about the impervious surface, but in a lot of ways, roofs can actually help drain water to the betterment of the property and neighbors. Especially with like rain barrels or river rock or, you know, what have you, natural kind of solutions. So.
We did 5, I did it over the year up to today, retaining walls. And I know that there is isn't there some administrative permitting on retaining walls? Right, there's some, and maybe it just needs to be expanded. Cause they were just slam dunks, you know?
It might be good on the retaining wall. Yeah. We talk about retaining walls almost exclusively in terms of height, but I think we need to be more clear on material. You know, and I don't know if we've seen enough retaining wall. We've seen plenty, like you said, but like maybe have an approved, like if we don't want railroad ties or, you know, like what are the best practice recommendations for retention walls at this point in time? Like, do you do rebar? Do you do poured concrete? You know, and then I understand that could add a whole new complexity for homeowners if it's more expensive, but I think if we're going to look at it fresh, it's worthy to.
Well, we did it for fences, so what's the
Yeah,
difference?
and the same thing would go for fences too, to your point. Right, okay, yeah.
Okay,
That's good.
And maybe change the fence thing to 6 foot. Instead of 4. I mean, nobody has a 4-foot fence anymore. I mean, everybody has a 6.
I have a 4-foot fence.
Don't say anything.
I mean,
You're gonna have to get a.
We're basically we're gonna put the zoning board of appeals out of business right here.
I'm not voting against 6 foot but I know Richard kind of was in a tough one there because, you know, when you have a corner lot, I mean, and you have a side yard, I don't know if I completely want 6 feet all the time there.
Well, they were coming towards, they were 25 feet off the street. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of variables in play there. I just don't think it's tough to say just a blanket. You have to take into account setbacks and all that kind of stuff.
I think they just didn't explain anything.
I'm not talking about that
Oh.
specific case. I'm saying in general.
Yeah, that's that.
I don't think we should blanket to say we should allow 6 feet in a side yard. Because I know you said just make everything 6, but I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. That's all I'm saying,
Yeah.
especially on the side yard.
I like administrative permits.
Yeah, so I'm thinking also like the covered porch that we have that comes up sometimes. If it's the same exact footprint that they have, do they need to come in front of us again? Because sometimes they have a porch and they're just redoing it, and it's just, they're just covering the same exact scenario.
That's kind of like code enforcement though. Like if you go in and start knocking down your walls, you're obligated as the new owner to take care of the issues that you inherit. So if it's a new structure, that's my understanding, right?
Yeah,
If it's a new structure,
It's for setback items, you have exception for short objects.
Mhm.
Pretty much for something that is like a deck that's on the ground floor or for like steps, they're exempt. And then the moment you put a roof over it, you have a 3-dimensional structure, and then that becomes sort of part of the building.
Okay.
That's what people are running into. So the moment they're extending a little bit further forward, you know, they're often just hitting the setback.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, and and the other, I'm thinking, it's probably part of the code already now. That some people come and the porch is in disrepair. They just have, they have to fix it, and they're doing the same exact thing,
The footprint's the same.
right? Whether it's
Yeah.
in the foot buffer, and a lot of times, half of the house is already in the foot buffer,
Right.
in the stream buffer. So why do they need to come? I mean, to come to us if they're doing the exact same footprint for something that's in disrepair. It's something that you should be able to evaluate and say, yeah, because they're gonna come in front of us unless it's infringing even more on the stream buffer, or it's different, maybe the covered, then I'm gonna say, okay, no problem, because I want you to be safe.
but you're kind of talking about a grandfather clause, which grandfather clause to me just means if you leave it as it is and it's within code and you haven't touched it, but the minute you touch something, it becomes kind of new slate. A new code. It's kind of like when you're in your home and your tree falls in your house. It's happened to me, and you gotta upgrade your electric in your house. Well, they're not just gonna let me put any old thing in there. You gotta have arc fault. You gotta have GFCI. You gotta have, you know, a whole home cutoff and everything like that. So I get where you're going, and I agree with you actually entirely. But the problem, I think the tricky part of that is like it's almost the contractors that have to abide by the code, which pushes it down onto the city. And the city probably doesn't want to absorb that liability of not at least putting it to our zoning board, because it's a protection. I would think.
I think you're right. I'm just thinking that maybe we should shift it in, but okay.
And
What do you have to say?
board member, like for those decks in stream buffers that are replaced by a similar porch, kind of by a roof structure, our interpretation is because there's water coming through the deck and infiltrating into the ground. So it's kind of, you have an increase in impervious area. So some of these kind of, where there's underneath, someone has concrete underneath, we're not asking them to do a stream buffer variance because there's no increase in from an environmental standpoint. But what we could do is consider, or ask the consultant to consider, to what extent decks need to be considered, because they're somewhere in between, right? Because some water gets through, but it doesn't get through the same way. So that's a good point.
I got another question though. Okay, now all these ideas are coming before they were there. Like the sign ordinance, is that gonna be part of the discussion a little bit at all?
Yeah, sign ordinance will be included. What we're doing is called a unified development ordinance that has everything that's related to construction
Okay.
is part of it. So a sign ordinance would be part of it.
So there right now, if I understand it correctly, and I'm probably dead wrong on this, you know, we get too many of these, but no lit sign. And there's a really small boundary. I mean, people come to me and complain. And I'm like, listen, I'm part of the zoning board. I don't want to know. I send them back to you. But it seems as if we have a lot. They seem to argue that we have a lot more restrictions than most places, which might be good. You know, like I said, I didn't take the time to analyze except if it comes in front of me. Especially the big complaint seems to we don't allow any type of lit sign. Is that true?
And
I mean, I'm not telling you to do it. I'm just.
and we discussed, like, we did a new sign ordinance in 2021. And we had a steering committee, and it was lively discussion in front of the city council, lively around the lighting. The challenge is that some people have strong preferences on types of lighting, you know, where they prefer gooseneck lighting or, like, you know, external lighting, and some people do not like the internal box illuminated signs. What we have is we have different requirements for lighting in perimeter center. So perimeter center is a bit more flexible. And I think we're actually sort of not that different from many other places. We have stricter requirements in the commercial districts outside of perimeter center. So it depends on the specifics.
No, you answered my question. I think most people point to the perimeter center to come to our section. That's what happened. Okay.
I have one, go ahead. I have
I
one
was gonna
more,
say-
one more to add.
All right, come on. I'm
We took over.
No, I know you want to adjourn. Creative solutions to solving for impervious solution type problems. So for example, if you want to say a homeowner is in a stream buffer, wants to have a little more driveway width, but can't pave with concrete or something, you could throw, I think legally even today, you could throw down, it's like a template stuff and throw down rocks. But it's like, you can do a loose it's not paved, but a loose rock solution without actually, I think it'd be beneficial to consultants to look at alternative solutions for dealing with impervious solutions that are not against the public health and all that good stuff, you know. And maybe that's been brought up, but I know we dealt with that one case where it was clearly an objection because the person had done like 80% impervious surface on the whole lot. You remember that one with the lady in the room? I mean, that's obviously way out of line, but based on our vote too. But I think there's other situations where you see it if you drive down certain roads today. Some people put a little bit of rock on the side so they can park an additional car in their driveway without putting it out on the main road, you know, stuff like that. So.
And we have sort of there's many cases that don't make it to your end up being resolved similar to that, where we either, if it's a lot coverage thing, we might do a horse trade, just like take this out and put this in, which is fine. There's numerous things for like surfaces are permitted. There's pervious paver type systems that are okay. There's some people have those driveways that are ribbon driveways with grass in the middle. That's fine. So there's all sorts of solutions. Gravel is the one thing. Like gravel, we also had like a big text amendment just about a year and a half ago, and there the city council limited the application of gravel specifically and made strict standards because it has aesthetic repercussions if it's not well maintained.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyone else, Les? No. Okay.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you for seeking our input on that.
Thank you all. And if anything comes to mind sort of over the next, it's a 2-year process. We'd be excited if you guys are involved in some way, shape or form, right? There'll be a surveys, there'll be public meetings, there'll be open houses. We don't know exactly the timeline on when it's going to go, but you guys have, you know, just a closer perspective than many other people. So we'd be excited if you all participate. And then you always have our contact information. So if anything sort of comes up, let us know, kind of, and we're interested in hearing from you.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Paul. Is there any public comment? No. Any board comment?
Actually, I have one.
Yeah, I have one too.
I have
Go.
one.
You go.
Mine's a
first.
compliment, actually. So I participated in, well, this is public, but whatever it is what it is. In a place where it was Gwinnett County boards that I dealt with. And my client, poor guy, it wasn't a good case. But, you know, the level of guidance that was available to that client was so bad. I'm like, you should go to Dunwoody. It's a compliment to you all, really, because I almost never take these cases and I was kind of help them, which was kind of well, I won't say anything like it, but it's so different here in Dunwoody because anybody, even the last one, you're not going to say no, no, no to someone. You're going to give them the opportunity, and people don't realize what they have here in Dunwoody. So I just wanted to tell you guys, I appreciate you guys a lot more on behalf of even the citizens of Dunwoody, you know? Yes.
Amen.
Yeah, my comment, I just wanted before we close it has to do with the last case. Because we have seen the example that your office goes above and beyond. I personally have friends that have had cases before you and they tell me how great the feedback is, how you help them. I have a feeling that the case we had to adjudicate tonight, is that a word I should use? Anyway, I think there was just a wall that got put up that didn't come down. And I think maybe I'm not going to say why, maybe they were new to the community and didn't understand that we want open communication, and open communication comes with everyone wins. So I think maybe they learned a little bit about Dunwoody tonight and they're probably glad they live here. And I don't want ever you to think that poor guy, Paul, not Paul. I feel so bad for that guy that they kept quoting tonight. I don't remember his name, but anyway, the guy that wrote the letter, but anyway, he did y'all do a great job and we appreciate everything.
Thank you. Thank you. And everyone enjoy whatever is left of your evening. I am adjourning this meeting. Thank you all.
And you get to now talk to Joe. Go pick me up.
See you. Yeah, but was no one? No, this like. I didn't want you anything I know you want to take, but like, yeah.